I was born and raised in Brownwood, Texas. I accepted Christ as my Savior when I was a freshman in high school.
I am a hometown girl from Wills Point. I have lived here all my life.
Sarah and I met when we were working at Wills Point High School together. I was coaching and she was a trainer.
Kevin and I dated for a little over a year before we were married.
Shortly after we were married, we found out that Sarah was pregnant and we would have our first daughter.
It was very much a surprise to us because at the time, our doctor said that we were not going to be able to have a kid because of my past medical history. I was excited. I was scared. I was just still in shock for a pretty good while.
Madeline Ray was born on October 19th, 2001. When Maddie was born, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The birth of my own child, and she was perfect.
The first time that I saw Maddie, she is just perfect. She's got 10 fingers and 10 toes, and everything is just beautiful. And I still cannot believe that I was blessed with such a beautiful baby.
Our perfect little family was continuing, and in the summer of 2002, much to our surprise, we found out that Sarah was expecting another baby.
When I found out I was pregnant with our second baby, Macy, I was not happy. I was not excited. In fact, I was scared to death. Because for one, Maddie was just still a baby. And the other was, how could I possibly ever love another baby like I love Maddie? At the very beginning of my pregnancy, everything seemed so normal. After that, I started having pain. As the baby grew, I never felt hiccups. I never felt the movement, but yet the doctor would constantly say, everything's okay.
On February 24th, 2003, we rushed Sarah to the hospital to have an emergency C-section. When they were performing the C-section, there was no sounds, there was nothing coming from our baby. And all of a sudden I hear what seemed to be a code or different things going off, and they were calling for a NICU doctor. And at the time I had no idea what a NICU doctor was. And they rushed us into the elevator so they could take us to the NICU. They said we were going to intubate her and we're going to put her on machines. There's going to be a series of tests that are going to take place. There'll be test after test after test. I begin then to ask, where is Sarah? Is she okay? Take me to see Sarah. So there for the next 3 days I bounced from the top floor to the bottom floor.
When Kevin came and told me what was going on with Macy down in the NICU, I knew deep down inside that there was already something wrong.
Day after day, we would ask questions. Day after day, we would get the same results. Nobody knows.
When we found out we were not going to be able to bring Macy home, I felt lost. I felt empty.
On day 9 of this whole thing, the doctors ultimately said that a decision would have to be made. They were going to run another test, and if nothing changed, then they were going to recommend that we took Macy completely off of the life support. That night, I prayed to God that He would take her so that ultimately Sarah and I would not have to make that decision. But in God's infinite wisdom, He decided that we were going to make that decision. And on March 3rd of 2003, she died in my arms. 10 days before, I thought I was going to have a great baby, and all of a sudden I'm planning a funeral.
I asked questions. I got mad. I even said, if there's a real God, why? My faith really started failing.
During this time, our marriage really struggled. We became very distant from each other.
After a couple years, I realized that the void that I had is never going to be filled. So I said to myself one day, we have to move on.
Sarah and I talked, and I just said we have to get back to life. We have to move on, and we have to become our family again. After a couple of years of struggles, we began to put all the pieces back together. Our marriage began to get back on track. We were back in church. Everything was starting to be back to our perfect little family.
One day Kevin comes home and tells me that he wants to talk to me. Well, that conversation ends with, I think I want to have another one, or at least try. What do you think?
Not long after Sarah and I talked about it and we began agreeing to try to have another child, we found out that she was pregnant.
When we met with the doctor, she told us that we were going to be meeting with a specialist to have special sonograms done. We were going to have an MRI done. We were going to be watched very, very closely.
We found out that our child was going to be a boy. We had already talked about we were going to name him after my dad. I like the name Marcus, and Dad wants to go by Mark, so we were going to name him Marcus.
When I went in for my C-section, everything was good. The doctor said, in just any minute now, your little boy will be here.
That morning, Marcus Shane Bachtel was born. He was delivered, and the only thing I heard was one whimper.
All I can remember is asking Kevin, why can I not hear him cry?
And then, once again, they're calling for a NICU team. They're calling for a NICU doctor. They're doing an intubation. Once again, here I go down the same track. What was all so normal began to be deja vu all over again. I felt like it was all a dream. I just started praying and asking God, why would you do this? Why would you do this to me and my family? Why would you do this to Maddie?
And Kevin broke the news to me that they had to put Marcus on a machine, just like they did with Macy. I couldn't believe that we were going through this another time. I started saying to myself, why did I put my family through this again? When I was finally able to be wheeled down to see Marcus for the first time, I just wanted to take him out of that bed and hold him.
As we were reliving this nightmare, everything seemed to be the same thing as Macy, except for Marcus's brain was completely normal. His heart function was completely normal. The only thing he wasn't doing was moving, and his lung capacity was not as good as it should have been. Day by day, he continued to get stronger and stronger. All of a sudden, we heard that he's going to be transferred to Children's Hospital. We saw many specialists who still don't know what was wrong with Marcus. They ran tests, they sent tests all over the world. The best news was he was going to get to come home, and he was getting stronger all the time. On May 22nd, 2007, we were finally able to bring Marcus home.
The day that we got to bring Marcus home, all I wanted to do was sit on the floor with my family, all in one spot.
Our home was like a revolving door. Someone was always coming in. But it didn't matter. We were a family. We were at home. Marcus continued to get stronger. He would laugh. He would smile. As soon as you walked in the door, he would stick his hand up and wave at you. He would light up a room, no matter what. Even if he was having a bad day, he would live life to the fullest. Maddie loved to be there and take care of him. She was probably the best sister that you could ever ask for. On Tuesday, March 23rd, 2010, I was at work and I was handing out lunches when I got a text saying I need to call an ambulance.
As I'm on my way home, I get a phone call from Kevin. I panicked because he had never had the ambulance called on before. We've never even had to go to the emergency room.
As soon as I pulled up to the house, Sarah came running out to the truck, and all she could say was, "He's gone, he's gone." I came in the house, and they were doing CPR on Marcus, and I just fell to my knees. I immediately began to question God and ask, why have you done this to my family? Again, he had taken away not only one child, but now he's taken away two. That day, Sarah and I made a promise to each other that although we knew the difficulties that were about to come to us, we were still going to be committed to each other. On the weeks and months after that, that statement began to be a lot harder to keep true. We became very distant again. We began to fight. we began to not even be able to be in the same room. Our marriage, our family grew apart even more now than the time that we lost Mason.
That day when that little boy was taken from me, my whole world crashed. I had so much jealousy and hatred and anger. My trust, my love, my faith were gone.
I knew that my family needed God. I knew that somehow I needed to find a way to get back into the life that we had. We started going to church. We started visiting different churches. And we would talk about them, and we would say that yes, we like them, but we would never really commit. And I would blame myself because I honestly did not want to go to church. I did not want to have anything to do with God. I knew Maddie needed God. I knew Sarah needed God. But I really did not want anything to do with him. As we continued to go through this, I was driving down the road one day and it just hit me that you're going to have to make yourself right. One morning I was at work and Brandon called and told me his vision of planting a church in Wills Point and asked if Sarah and I would be on board. Although I was 100% on board, I was still a little hesitant because I knew that I was not right with God. As we started having meetings with our launch team, we started going to church every Sunday. It became a bigger part of our lives. When we had our first Sunday service at Stonepoint, I knew that I had to make a complete change. I went through the motions for so long, and I continued to grow closer to God every Sunday that we met, it seemed. Sarah and I eventually went to counseling. We finally started to mend our marriage. As I started growing closer to God, our marriage started growing closer to God. We continued to work. We continued to do Bible studies. We continued to go to church and volunteer our time. Although I still do not understand why God chose to take two of my children, I know that ultimately everything is in His hands, and He has a plan for my life, for Maddie's life, and for Sarah's life.
I don't know why exactly Marcus was taken away from us, but I do know one reason why he was given to us. He made me a whole lot stronger, a lot more thankful for the little things. In fact, I would catch myself many times telling people, it's the small things you need to be thankful for. I truly believe that He was given to me so that when I go in and I have to comfort a little kid, a baby, an adult, I can actually mean it from the very bottom of my heart. I can actually tell them that I've been there and I understand.
I know every day that I work with kids, I see them completely different. The ones that are not as fast or not as smart or don't understand everything, I have a complete understanding and patience for them. I am at peace with my children's death. I know that God has forgiven me for all the things that I said, and I know that through all of this that I am better. I'm currently in my second year of leading a journey group for Stonepoint Church. I believe that God has equipped me through my past hurts and struggles to help others through their hurts and struggles as well.
Within the past year, God has really been working on my heart. He's been working on my marriage. He's been working on my relationships. He has even softened this hard heart. Even though I still struggle with questions of why, I know deep down inside that it's for a reason. He's also reminded me that these aren't just my kids, they're His. Yes, I'm their mom here on earth, but He is their Heavenly Father, just like He is mine. Despite the struggles and the trials and the hardened heart, my faith and my walk with God has begun him so much stronger. I'm Sarah Bachtel. I have made God first in my life.
My name is Kevin Bachtel. Thank you, Stonepoint Church, for making room for me and my family.
And thank God for making me a game changer.